Officials of the Disaster Reconstruction Authority updating the media today on the challenges encountered during the recent burial of 55 unidentified Hurricane Dorian victims. Good evening, I'm Jiminita Swain. Welcome to the Bahamas Tonight, the weekend edition. Thanks so much for tuning in. The virtual press conference lasting almost 2 hours involved local pathologists, members of the Royal Bahamas Police Force, the Bahamas and Abaco Christian Councils, and the Bahamas Morticians and Funeral Directors Association. The conference comes amidst growing controversy from relatives of the deceased and the concerned citizens regarding the handling of the burial service and the challenge to positively identify victims. Desmond Sanders reports.
Janine Weiss-Gomez from the coroner's office says in the aftermath of Killer Storm Dorian, her team, along with the Royal Bahamas Police Force and local pathologists, moved swiftly in identifying the victims. She highlighted other areas of concerns for her department, including the removal and recovery of Dorian victims.
As soon as was reasonably practical after Dorian, those victims that were and could have been identified were released to family members. We are currently awaiting DNA to determine the identity of a number of the victims. However, in early March, at the request of the Disaster Release Committee, a number of victims were in fact released for burial. To date, inquiries are still ongoing, and an inquest will be given the highest priority and will commence immediately after all the relevant inquiries have been concluded.
Pathologist from the Royal Bahamas Police Force, Karen Sands, says multiple trips were made to Abaco to identify victims.
This was and is an ongoing exercise, and multiple trips to Abaco were made to examine victims as already stated. Each victim had a unique identifying number, and that was part of that case that went on the demographic data, on the body, on the bag, on the photographs, on the specimens submitted. And as coroner mentioned, this number followed them to the casket and to the grave.
Assistant Police Commissioner Solomon Cash says the process of identifying victims still remains a challenge. DNA and blood samples of Dorian victims have been sent to an international forensic laboratory for testing, and the results are pending.
We were able to fingerprint all of the recovered bodies. Those prints were run in our APHIS a machine. We got no match on any of the fingerprints. We then rely on dental records. That was also a process that we engaged our forensic teams with. We were unsuccessful. And finally, we moved to the DNA stage.
The Bahamas United Morticians Association was engaged by the DRA to execute the burial. Chairperson of the Disaster Reconstruction Authority, Catherine Forbes-Smith, says her team has followed the best standards and protocols for this exercise. The remains of the 55 unidentified victims were recovered in Abaco. Their remains were stored in a refrigerated mobile morgue until burial at the public cemetery on the SC Boodle Highway, Central Pines. The victims were individually interred, and work is being carried out at the burial site in Abaco. Desmond Saunders, ZNS Network News.